Hello, everyone. Welcome to Broadband Deployment News. There's a CableLabs working group that is working on making it easier for cable operators to transition to fiber. And actually, this will make it easier for traditional fiber operators as well. Be right back. Thanks for joining me. Rick Husey here with Broadband Deployment News. So I just wanted to go through this blog post from CableLabs. CableLabs is a standards organization that has been working on the DOCSIS standards and developing in that since it first came out. So that's the standard for cable modem service. And in the DOCSIS world, it's nice to have CableLabs in their standard, the DOCSIS standard, because the equipment manufacturers all work to that standard, diagnostics applications, the kinds of things you can do. CableLabs comes up with lots of methods to help with diagnostics and device management, and it's all standard. So, for somebody like us that develops software, it makes it a lot easier for us to do diagnostics for for cable equipment manufacturers, CMTS manufacturers, the cable modems. Makes it a lot easier to develop those things and know that they're going to work. Because if you develop to the standard and everybody develops to the standard, then everything works. It's not that way in the fiber world. Fiber's been kind of the Wild West, where you've got different vendors doing different things, and if you're going to be doing diagnostics, you tend to have to develop your diagnostics to each platform, and sometimes they make it difficult to do that. Maybe they've got their own closed system. Same thing for provisioning, activating devices. DOCSIS is very easy to work toward a standard to do that, whereas in the fiber world, it's a little bit difficult. So we have developed some things and brought out some products and services that help with this, but we'll certainly be happy. Fiber, for example, we have diagnostics for both. We have an application called TrueVision that does diagnostics for both DOCSIS and fiber. And on the DOCSIS side, it's very easy. If your equipment supports a DOCSIS standard, then we can do something pretty quickly. If it's fiber, we got to figure out how to make it work with that fiber equipment and go and do things that can break later if the vendor changes something. So it's a lot more difficult. So we would be looking forward to this, and we're actually participating in the working group to try to bring this about, to help bring it about. But I want to walk through this blog, talk about some of the issues, and I will mention that we do have, like I say, we've got some solutions for this. So, for example, one of the things is provisioning, and it's once a DOCSIS operator decides they want to move to fiber, they may realize, or they don't have to, but they may think we got to completely rip out our provisioning system, or if they're doing both DOCSIS and fiber, they don't want to do that. So there's solutions like that. There's DPoE, which is DOCSIS provisioning of Ethernet, but that's only if you're doing EPON. If you want to do GPON, that's more of a challenge. But we have something for example, for Nokia fiber, which we call DOCSIS provisioning adapter, where you can provision your Nokia PON equipment with this adapter. It's kind of some middleware that will allow you to do use your DOCSIS provisioning system and provision your fiber devices as if they were cable modems, for example. And we are working on that for other platforms as well. We've got our TrueVision Diagnostics, like I mentioned. It's fiber and DOCSIS diagnostics in the same interface. So if you've got cable modems out there and you've got ONTs, you've got CMTS and OLTs, then you can see diagnostics for all of that equipment in the same interface. And we support multiple fiber platforms. Again, it's not easy. We support multiple DOCSIS equipment manufacturers as well. And that was a lot easier than trying to support all these separate fiber platforms. Then we've got FiberView. This is for provisioning and activation. Is very difficult, and this one is very popular outside of the United States because there's lots of fiber operators down there that have multiple different kinds of equipment, and when they have multiple equipment, they sometimes need to have different provisioning systems and multiple applications that they have to go in to activate things. And this is, again, one system that handles lots of different fiber platforms. And there's also some diagnostics and management features in there as well. So I linked to all three of those, including the blog article. So I linked to the blog article, and I linked to all three of these solutions because we are already trying to tackle this problem as best we can by doing it the hard way. We're not a standards organization, so we're going through and trying to make things work. We are making things work with these various fiber platforms, but again, it's difficult on our part. So we are looking forward to what CableLabs is doing here. So I was going to look through this. You see here, future-proofing optical networks, streamlining operations for a smooth transition to PON. Cable operators desire to simplify operations while they embrace passive optical networking, or PON, but maintaining and managing PON solutions is proprietary, different from other access networks, and requires new tooling. So again, it's different, first of all. So you've got DOCSIS cable modems and you get fiber, so that's different. But then if you've got to have a different provisioning system, and if you want to use more than one vendor, it makes it even more difficult. So some of these proprietary systems lock you into one vendor. So that's where, for example, our FiberView product, people can get multiple vendors and they can make them all work and have one platform that will provision and activate and be able to manage those devices. So that's what we're trying to work toward here in this working group with CableLabs. But that's the challenge, is that these proprietary systems don't necessarily all work together, and then you've got multiple applications and platforms that you're using. Some unification of fault and failure management is desirable for the industry so that operators can reduce the need to swivel chair between networks and tools, and vendors can simplify what they support in their products. So again, this is great for the vendors if they want to be open. Some of them may not want to be. They may want to say, well, we want to have a closed system and make everybody come to us and use our software and use our provisioning, and we want to control the market. It's kind of like maybe the Apple versus the IBM model, or Apple versus Android model, depending on the decade you're thinking about. There's kind of open is better, and it's really better for the equipment manufacturers to have this standard that they can all write to. I think it raises all boats, so to speak. So I think that's a good thing. PON, like other optical networks, relies on proprietary management tools based on, at times, telemetry that is proprietary or extended from any of a number of standards or specifications. So again, you've got these various standards and specifications that aren't always followed. They're not always the same, those kinds of things. From our experience with DOCSIS technology, by helping the industry align on operations, CableLabs knows this could all be better for everyone. So it gives you a scenario here. Imagine you're a network engineer trying to manage the capacity of your DOCSIS networks, and suddenly you're tasked with learning a whole new set of additional tools, techniques, and terminologies to manage a new type of access network, a PON network. Now, apply that complexity to the entire operations, the many involved technicians and all the necessary tools to accomplish the task. That's a level of difficulty that many network operators face today as they begin to deploy PON technology for their access networks. And that's true. It touches a lot of different people in your organization. That's one reason why being able to do DOCSIS provisioning of fiber when you're still deploying both technologies is so helpful, because if you rip out not rip out, I guess if you're doing both technologies, you have to put in a totally different provisioning system for fiber. Then you've got to have people trained on both. It's just a big hassle. It's involving different groups in the company. You've got technicians out there. If you've got different diagnostics tools for both, you've got technicians out there that are having to learn multiple things and go into multiple systems. That's why we have the TrueVision platform, where you can be in one system and see a cable modem or an ONT or whatever you've got right there in the same interface. Maintaining and managing PON solutions is largely proprietary and very different from other access networks, as I mentioned here, require new tooling and expertise. Needless to say, operators are in the midst of a massive transition. Instead of operating a few flavors of DOCSIS networks, and what they're talking about there could be DOCSIS, mostly now 3.0, some 3.0 and 3.1, and now 4.0. And that is certainly a challenge, but at least if it's all DOCSIS, it's at least backward compatible. So if you put in 3.1 devices and 4.0 devices, you can still have your 3.0 devices in there if you still have 3.0, that kind of thing. But now you're throwing PON into the mix. So they're managing an even broader set of technologies in their access networks, but these challenges don't need to be as significant as they are. By aligning the industry with certain architectures and identifying the key telemetry, building solutions that support use cases in ways that streamline operations, and reducing the burden of broad and overlapping options for vendors, we can shrink the time to market for improved technologies while streamlining our networks overall. And it does help there as well, as equipment vendors come out and they want to get new equipment out or new diagnostics tools. If you're writing to a standard, it can go much more smoothly. And again, people will adopt it more readily and quickly as well. To help operators rise to the challenge, CableLabs is not only committing resources in this direction, but has also established a working group. It's called the Optical Operations and Maintenance, or OOM, that tackles the aforementioned complexities head on. The working group has a scope of aligning fault and failure management of optical networks to streamline operations. The stated objectives are maintenance that is proactive, reactive, predictive, and more. Attention to the physical layer and related functions, and telemetry, alignment, solution development, and more. If you've been around the industry a bit, these objectives might seem familiar. Indeed, the working group's objectives statement is very similar to that of CableLab's Proactive Network Maintenance, or P&M working group. That's another product we have. If you go to our website, we've got a proactive network maintenance tool, and what that does is it allows you to, if you're a cable operator, to see any issues that you have out there. First of all, it's something that will, there's a pre-equalization thing that you can turn on your CMTS that will suddenly increase the ability of your plant to work around impairments. And most operators have that turned on, but what the P&M tool does is it takes that pre-EQ data and it allows you to see where problems are before they're impacting customers, because pre-EQ kind of masks the problems. It improves the signal, but it doesn't fix the problem. So the P&M tool will let you go fix the problem. So that's something that is available in the DOCSIS world, and they're looking at that for the fiber world as well. Says we could have called optical P&M, but we recognize that operators have goals beyond P&M when it comes to optical networks. Our charter for this work matches what operators and vendors say they need. Although the scope seems large, and it is also focused on quickly turning around valuable results. The current course of the working group is like a peloton of bicycles in a race. In a cooperative effort, will share outcomes with a parallel working group that addresses other fiber to the prem challenges, since the working group is indeed addressing one fiber challenge: common provisioning and management. And again, that's the issue that we're talking about here, is a platform to have that can provision different kinds of devices to a standard, and the same thing with management, getting data from these devices, being able to manage or control these devices remotely as opposed to having to go out in the field, those kinds of things. Or having to use multiple applications. So by working together, we accelerate the work of both groups. When it comes time for to move to the next optical challenge, we'll have the momentum we need to push forward. It talks about here creating industry alignment through standards and specifications. Architecture is the foundation for operations in the network. Operations must manage the network components and systems. How the network does its job to provide a service and how it fails to do so drives what needs to be managed and monitored. Fault and failure monitoring use cases drive the information needed, and therefore the network telemetry and other data that network operators need. The architecture connects through the system failures and service impacts to the telemetry that supports the network operations use cases. Through a traceability approach, identifies the necessary telemetry that addresses operator needs, choosing from existing standards and specifications when possible. The process we follow will create industry alignment on what is important in standards and specifications today. That methodology eases the burden for vendors. Reducing complexity is the first alignment step, but we also want to drive consistency. The consistency will focus on current cable operations as well as other networks they manage. By targeting PON options that align best with DOCSIS network advantages that operators enjoy today, we reduce the operations burden. It then becomes possible to agree on common tools and thereby reduce the cost of network operations. By enabling the alignment of optical network management, we take that one step further. So again, this is very nice for cable operators who are going to be managing both networks. So if you've got DOCSIS and fiber, then this, kind of like, again, our TrueVision tool and some of the things that we do, will make it easier for you. But this will make it easier across the board. And there's no reason that this would not make it much better for fiber, strict fiber operators, because right now, again, you are kind of limited and sometimes you feel locked in with a particular vendor. And this will make it where you can look at having multiple vendors if there's a reason to do so, or just also having standards. If you wanted to develop your own, if you're a larger fiber operator and wanted to develop your own tools, then you'll have standards to be able to do that. So this is beneficial, I think, for everybody. Since we've already seen the potential of work in PON, but the next steps will present a whole new challenge. Introducing aligned use cases to connect the architecture to the telemetry can reduce the complexity of vendor developments and operator tools. We have to drive that advantage to other networks too. It talks about looking ahead here and joining the working group. So anyway, I linked to this. So this is exciting, and it's, like I say, it's been going on for a bit, and they've made some progress, but I'll be very interested to see, and again, we've got folks that are in this working group, so I'll be very interested to see where this goes. And again, for us, it's exciting as a software developer and as a company that sells tools that will help both cable and fiber operators. This is something, again, that I think will help us, but also helps the industry in general. So, and again, I link to those pages in the description of the video, and you can also see here, just go to zquorum.com. If you have any questions about anything I've said, whether it's about one of our products or just something in general, you can send an email to info@zquorum. I'll get that. Or drop a comment on YouTube, and I'll see that and try to reply on YouTube for you. Thanks for joining today. If this was interesting, if you give me a like on the video, I'd appreciate it. Just hit the thumbs up there somewhere on YouTube and click the subscribe button and ring the bell, and you'll be notified when I'm live next time. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.